Welcome, 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 Immigrant Nation. Another week, another new episode. I'm your host, Aaron Deliosa, and this is an Immigrant's Life podcast. An Immigrant's Life on all the social media where you can follow and send me a message if you or someone you know wants to come on the podcast and be a guest. Or you can also email us at animigrantslife@yahoo.com. Oh, by the way, for those keeping track, this is our 199th episode of An Immigrant's Life. I don't usually make a big deal out of milestones, but reaching our 200th episode is definitely worth celebrating. I've got something special planned for the next week to mark the occasion. In the meantime, this week's episode is fantastic and I'm sure you'll love it. So let's dive in and explore what we got for this week. On today's episode, our guest brings a unique perspective to the podcast. A neuroscientist and co host of the From Suitcase to Success podcast, she dives deep into her personal journey, sharing insight on cultural pressures, navigating challenges in the American educational system, and the transformative power of mentorship and supportive friendship. This is one cool episode that you don't want to miss, so let's get to the point. Without further ado, let's get into the show. Isa, dalawa, tatlo. Today's guest is a newly minted brilliant neuroscientist and the co-host of From Suitcase to Success podcast. Everyone, please welcome Twisha Shah.
Hey everyone. It's like some show I'm on, and it's like an applause.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to emulate, I guess. You know
Yeah.
what? No, I'm lying. No, I just like the introduction. It's, again, I
It
always
gives
talk.
me that feeling though, so it somehow transferred the energy.
I appreciate that. Appreciate it. By the way, thank you for coming on the podcast. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm so excited. I had a chance to listen to a few episodes. Um, and yeah, I really liked the conversations that you had with the guests. They were very inspiring.
I don't know about inspiring.
No, I'm like, I just love how every episode you kind of create a theme or there's like a title that's like, I know for Mudras it was like celebrate every success or celebrate success. And I think that definitely attracted me to listen to some of the episodes. And I did get the same theme from the episodes. I really liked it.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. To be honest, it's not rocket science. It's just, I don't think of the title. The
Mhm.
title comes to me through the
Yeah,
guest. So
that's
whatever
it.
they say, sometimes I'll pick up something and I'm like, that's gonna be the title. That's gonna be the theme, you know.
Yeah.
So, but there are times that the guest is like nothing. I'm like, man,
Like the
work, you know.
yeah.
Speaking of Mudra and your podcast, why don't you tell the Immigrant Nation where they can reach you and if you want to promote anything?
Yeah, so Mudra is my podcast co-host. We recently started a podcast ourselves. It is called From Suitcase to Success. And we have an Instagram page at From Suitcase to Success, and we publish our episodes on Spotify. So yeah, we're very new to this. So when I was mentioning the whole getting the theme from the episode, I think we sometimes struggle with that too, because we want to kind of summarize it, but we also don't want to leave the details out. So we try our best and we're learning from you. So when you
Oh,
came over, we definitely were taking notes and just like to promote and market and just like, make reels and like run an Instagram page was very is difficult than we actually thought. We were like, this is a cake. We got this. We actually Mudra wanted to write a book, and it was me. I was like, I cannot write for the love of God. So I'm like, we're doing something that's very vocal that you don't need to edit a lot. So you say it and it goes like that. So yeah, so that's why we decided to do a podcast. And I am usually a podcast person from day one. I've been listening to podcasts since middle school, like going when I'm going to school or when I'm going to the gym, like I'm always listening to some kind of podcast. So
That's amazing. By the way, for the listeners, Mudra is Twisha's co-host,
yes.
co-host. I don't know how to say it. Co-host,
Yeah.
of the podcast, and she came on about 2 episodes ago. So if you want to listen to her story, just rewind 2 episodes ago or something like that. I don't know. I just made that up. I have so much episode I don't even remember.
It was 2 episodes ago.
Anyways, enough with Mudra. She's awesome. Now let's talk about Twisha.
Yeah.
I found out that you're a single child, like Mudra as well.
Yes.
Was that planned?
Well, I did ask that to my parents. So my mom had a miscarriage before me, and it was very early on. So it wasn't, yeah, and then I know she had to wait 5 years. My mom had to go through a lot of treatments to get pregnant. Like she went through IVF, she went through multiple different options like medicines, and yeah, and then she had me, and I was born a month early then. I was supposed to be born in October, but I'm born in September. So I was a premature baby. So they had me in the ICU for a month, and yeah, and then I'm here. So I did ask my parents, and they always tell me, because I joke with my parents that, everything that you guys earn, everything from you is gonna go to me. So very much going to take everything. And then they're always like, yeah, so we had to go through so much trouble to get you here. So you better appreciate it.
By the way, that's very kind of you to share that detailed story because it's very personal. I appreciate it. I didn't expect it to be, we're going to go hard early, but I do appreciate it.
Yeah.
But so I'm going to guess that after mom going through all that hell and dad, obviously, she's like, bro, I'm not going through that thing again.
Yeah. Yeah, she was like, this is it. Like, and I think she also had abnormal thyroid. So people who have abnormal thyroid, they usually have trouble with pregnancy. And so the doctor was also like, hey, like, I would recommend not to try again. And she was also like, I'm very content. We have a baby girl, like we're gonna be very fulfilled with her. Yeah.
Having said that, being a single daughter or single child even,
Yeah.
did that put extra pressure on you?
This is a good question. It, I would say it's hard being an only child because a lot of the times, like, there are good and bad things, obviously, but yeah, I feel like moving forward in the future, I would not have an only child. I think I would have two or a pair, just because I think there's a lot that you go through as an only child, and it's like you don't kind of relate to anybody else because like it's a different family that you're talking about then. So it's like you don't really get to share your problems, or you don't get to resonate with a lot of people. So it's just like you going through everything, and it's also my parents going through everything too, because it's their first time like parenting someone too. So we do like make mistakes and then we learn. But I say, like, in terms of pressure, no, thankfully. I know a lot of Indian cultures have that thing where a boy is more preferred in Indian households. And if you get a daughter, it's looked down upon. So I did have that discussion in my family when I was in my teenage years. I'm like, did you guys ever thought that we wanted a boy? And here I am. And they were like, no, like, thankfully, I'm very grateful. None of my family sides are like that. And I've always been looked as like a grandchild or a daughter or like a child, not like, oh, she's a girl, she can't do this. She's a boy, she can't do this. So I'm always like encouraged. I've been encouraged by everyone to do whatever I want and to go after whatever I want. So I didn't really feel that pressure in terms of like living up to being a good child and being a good like family person. No, I think I am a very like unique piece. That's what my family calls me. So there's no pressure because they know like I'm not gonna take it as a pressure.
That's beautiful. You mentioned earlier that in Indian culture, male children are more prioritized. Is that because when they get married, the woman pays the guys to get married?
It's also that, and it's also like I've heard from other families that like, oh, like she's a girl, like she can only do so much, like she's supposed to. Yeah, it's so stupid, and it gets me so like worked up that how dare you say that about. And I've also known like some friends that have like that they had to like drop the baby because they found out it was a girl, and they kept trying until they had a boy, and it's very sad. But then those are the people that like, even though they get a boy, like it's like the boy didn't do anything extraordinary that made you like drop a child, you know.
Yeah, I guess it's the old mentality, right? Which
Yeah,
when I found out that Indians and some culture like prioritize boys because when they get married the women pays, I was
yeah,
like, that's stupid. Women are more expensive. Like women, because in my culture, well, back in the days,
yeah.
it's the male family that pays the women
Mm.
for the what's the word,
Dowry, right?
dowry,
Yeah.
because it's a woman. It's like it's precious. It's beautiful. You're buying a flower, a beautiful flower. Male, what are we like? We're cavemen.
Yeah.
So I always like that.
Yeah, it's also like, oh, she is going to go through school, then she's going to get married, have kids, and then eventually she'll settle in and become a housewife. But a
This
guy,
is also I don't understand. It's like educate the girl and then get married. Like what's the point of educating her?
yeah, like don't let her work. We have our family business. Our guys can run that. It's yeah, it's stupid.
Anyways, thank God we have moved, eh?
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
old were you when you moved to the US?
I was 12, and then after a month I got here, I turned 13.
I understand that you had to go through the hoops and whatever craziness what a typical immigrant child goes through the school system. You
Oh,
want to share that story?
yeah, yeah. So when we moved, I moved in like August, mid-August. So by the time the schools have already started, so I missed all the orientation and everything. And I moved, and then I was immediately placed in the school. Like the next day I had school. And then they call me after like our morning assembly or whatever, and they're like, yeah, we actually are checking your transcripts, and it turns out that according to your birth date, you are supposed to be in seventh grade. But I had already completed seventh grade. I started eighth grade in India too, and then I moved like middle of eighth grade. So I'm like, there's no way I'm repeating seventh grade. And they were like, no, that's the school policy. I'm like, you said you're checking my transcripts, but the decision was about my birthday. So I'm like, it doesn't make sense. And they were like, yeah. So they had me like waiting there for like an entire day because teachers were busy, counselors were busy, the dean is busy. I was so determined. I was like, yeah, fine. I'm sitting there. I don't have to go to class. Like, perfect. And then the next day they were like, yeah, so if you want to move to eighth grade, you would have to take some exams. And they never specified what kind of exams. They were like, it's a hard exam, like no one really, it's not traditional, like we don't recommend foreign students taking that. I'm like, what's the exam?
Bitch, I'm from India. You know what we have to go through.
Exactly. I'm like, here's my pen. Like, give me the damn paper. Like, we're taking the exam right now. And they were like, okay. And they had like the cameras and they had someone watching me, like a proctor. I'm like, whatever. So I do my exam. I do my exam, and they're like, okay, you can go. So I was sent home because they didn't even want to tell me the results. The next day, they called my uncle because he was the one who like registered. And then he was like, yeah, so she did pass the exam, but we're still gonna put her in like the regular classes with ESL. So she's still like not, she still doesn't know English. I'm like, bro, like you're kidding. So I was in like ESL classes, so it's English speaking learner or English Spanish learner, something like
No,
that.
it's English as secondary language.
English as there we go. Sorry. Yeah, they're English as secondary language. I'm like, whatever. So the only classes I had with other eighth graders were math and science. like and history, and then English and all those gen eds, I was with like a bunch of foreign students who, yeah,
It's
who,
crazy because math and English and whatever else you're learning are in English.
yeah.
Yet you have to go to this.
Oh, I was like, I hate this. And I hated being in ESL because I was with a bunch of students from who just immigrated from Mexico. And the teacher was also like Spanish speaking. So they would only chat in Spanish. They would only discuss everything happened in Spanish. And I'm just in the corner of the room, like just trying my best to open Google Translate and translating my way through middle school. And then somehow like I had and then I remember I was so like diminished and like just demotivated from defeated is the word defeated from like being put in ESL, like despite getting like a 90% on that exam that they made me take.
No reviews, by the way.
Yeah. So I'm like, this is, yeah. And then I would go to the dean's office like every day. I'm like, I don't understand. Like they speak in Spanish. Like I'm not learning anything. I feel like you can put me in seventh grade normal classes. Like I'll still take it, but please don't put me in ESL. And they were like, this is the school policy. Like no more argument, no more discussion.
Did you talk to mom and dad about like what you're going through?
No, because they were okay. So my mom and dad on the side, our family owns like some gas stations and liquor stores and everything. So my mom and dad were kind of working there, but for free. They were not paid because they are
That's called
trained.
slavery.
Yeah, yeah. They are being trained, so they never got paid. So they would come home, they would go at 7 a.m, they would come home at 8 9 p.m. So yeah, they're there like cleaning and doing everything, and they by the time they get home and I'm home, like they're so exhausted, they barely have dinner and then they sleep. Like my dad barely ate anything because there was no spices, like that he just didn't feel like, hey, we're Indians, we love our spices.
That's it.
And so he didn't like the taste or whatever, so he used to only eat once a day. He hated bread because we make homemade food. We don't get bread in India. We only
Yeah.
get bread on special occasions. So
That's funny. Wait, who owns the gas station and why they're not getting paid? And who's paying your bills?
So we used to live with our uncle and aunt, my uncle and aunt at the time. So it was their gas station, but they were in partnership, which is like it's like we're family. Like why are we not whatever? So we didn't get paid. They didn't get paid, and then they were like, like wait for a month. We'll start paying you. You just have to wait for a month and let everything settle down. And I'm like, there's so much going on. Like, I don't want to discuss the school stuff. Like, as long as I'm able to handle it myself, like, I'll do that. Because even if I tell my parents and tell them to come talk to them, like, on behalf of me, like, they wouldn't be able to because we didn't have a car. So my uncle and aunt used to drive them to the gas station, and then they used to go to their jobs.
Wait, by the way, this uncle and auntie, is it real uncle auntie or one of those Indian uncle auntie?
He's my mom's brother.
Okay,
So
all right.
yeah. So we're very great. And my grandpa was also living with them. So it was already a big family. So we didn't want to create any more drama. We were just trying to understand like where we are, what's going on. And yeah, so eventually I had a middle school. I remember he was an advisor, but he was an advisor for special aid kids. Special aid kids. And he was like passing by and he heard me like talking to the dean, and he's like, hey, like can you come see me after lunch? I'm like, sure. And then he's like, what's going on? Like I've been seeing you outside his office, like what's up? And then I told him, and he was like, you know what? Like, you come to me whenever you're free, and we'll go over the worksheet, we'll go over the chapter, we'll go over the homework, and I'll make sure to like direct you to like the right teachers that can help you with everything. He's like, you do not have to feel like you're overlooked or you're not being taken care of. So he used to tell me like, oh, this is lunch, this teacher should be free, go and get your worksheet done or go and get your study guide done.
Okay. During those times, which is, you're fairly young, but still, you kind of know what's up. Do you remember how much the difference between the educational system between the US and India? Which one's the hardest you found?
I think in terms of adjusting, like the US system was harder, but in terms of like content, Indian educational system was very hard, and we had so much more to learn and to like keep up with versus here, like they go by like lenient, especially in middle school and high school. It's very like week by week, chapter by chapter, versus in India, it's like we're doing three chapters in 1 week. Like get ready. Exam is next week.
Yeah, if you miss one, you're dead.
Yeah, you're done. Repeat.
Oh man.
But I
You,
remember it was like in India, you stay in one classroom and then teachers come to your classroom. But versus here, you have to go to different classes, go to different teachers. You have to change classrooms. So I was very shocked. I'm like, what is this? And every after every class, you get a passing period where you have to go to your locker, exchange the book, and then go to the next class. So I remember I was having trouble opening my locker and I just couldn't do it in those 5 minutes. And I had a teacher that was there, her class was right next to mine, and she was an English teacher. And she was like, she would help me every time with her keys because I just couldn't get the combination. And that way I felt like I made friends, as in I made teachers my friends because they used to see me struggle every day. They used to see me like going in lunch. Like I never had lunch or I never got a chance to sit down and eat because I was so busy going to see different teachers to get my homework done or get, understand what the class is about and catching up. So they all knew me by that point, and they all knew me that I was being placed in ESL that I clearly don't like, but I'm very eager to move up. So I remember like my advisors and my teachers would just say that, like, if it was in our control, we would have definitely helped you. But it's like you could have spoken about it, but you didn't. But they were like, it's all in you. Like you have to work your way up. You have to prove them that you deserve to be in these honors classes. So like get working and like do it yourself. So I felt like even like moving here, like physically getting on the plane, moving here, every time like I was being told by different people according to different situations that you have to do this by yourself. Like it's on you. You have to figure it out and you have to prove yourself. So I felt like every time, even till like today, like if you look at the overall journey, it's always about like figure it out and learn it and work your way up.
yeah, it's the American way
Yeah, it's the American dream, as they
or
say.
American dream as well too. Obviously, you're a go-getter from the beginning because you can't even wait to leave mom, get out of mom,
Yeah.
with all and now school and whatnot. Were you
Yeah.
always been like that even when you were a child? And what propels you to always be better?
Yeah, I think I always need to be busy with something, and I always have this tendency from like the young age that I need to have. Also, I'm a big planner that comes with being a control freak, so I have to always be like, this is for this date, like this, having a to-do list, like planning out the day from like elementary school and even from kindergarten. I skipped kindergarten. I went to preschool, I like directly to grade one, I think. And it was always like, I'm gonna figure it out eventually.
For sure. You mentioned earlier that you had advisors that help you out.
Yeah.
How much influence those mentors have influenced you through your journey?
Yeah. So I think if I look at the overall journey, what I was trying to sort of like summarize was I never had like one specific mentor that I always go to if I need anything or is my emergency contact type of person. I had like multiple different mentors every step of the way. And then once I get to the next phase or next step, I get new mentors. And that doesn't mean that I'm leaving those behind. That just means like, okay, maybe our time was only till now and now it's time to move on, move forward. And knowing that I'm still grateful for everyone. I think I also have this personality that I kind of like steal good habits from a lot of people, and then I try to integrate that in my own life. So from my middle school mentors, I think one thing that I um like got from them is that even if you're not in the power to make a big change, like even if they couldn't directly change the school policy and change my class, they were still able to help me the best they could. They would have their lunch, they would eat side by side while helping me with the worksheet, get dedicating that extra time that they didn't have to. So I think that's something that I'm taking forward after middle school is that help the best you can. No one's telling you to go and make the biggest change in the world. Even if it's the little things, like try your best to help someone.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, it doesn't cost much.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
just like you said, the teacher was eating his lunch or her lunch, and you're
Yeah.
working on your thing. Like you're eating anyway, and you're sinning
Right.
anyway. Just look over. 1 plus 1 is 2. Don't worry about it. Move on. You know.
Exactly. Exactly. It doesn't cost you anything.
How can someone find and approach potential mentors effectively?
I think you have to be open-minded in life, not just like to find a mentor, but to get anywhere in life. Like you have to like kind of move outside your boundaries. Like yeah, my when I first went to middle school and then high school, I didn't have like that strong American accent that I have now. Like I still couldn't pronounce a lot of the words, or I still couldn't roll my tongue to say the R word, to say the R loud. And I still couldn't do that. So I was very shy. And there were times where I would come home and I would be like, they talk slangs to me, mom. I don't understand. How do I reply back to this? Like, I remember one instance that I was in gym, like our gym period, and my teacher said, "Go get a drink." And I did not know what that meant. Like drink? What do you mean drink? Like what type of drink are we talking?
Seriously?
Yeah, I had no idea what like go get a drink meant. And I was just there like, it's okay, like I'm good. And he was like, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah, that's okay. And then I saw someone doing it. Like he said the same thing to the girl like behind me, like, go get a drink. And she went to the water fountain, she got a drink. And I'm like, oh,
It
oh,
means water. It means
it
drink
means water.
something.
It means, yeah. It doesn't mean go get a Diet Coke. Like, no. So it's so funny, but so it's like if I never like waited and if I never saw that or if I never like if I was never curious about it, I would have stayed with that mental thing like oh go get a drink means like go get a can of Diet Coke or soda. So it's like being open-minded, like try to like if someone asks you a question, if someone tells you about something, be interested, even if it's like none of your business or even if it's not your like interest, like try to be interested, try to invest your time in building relationships, and then that's how you find your mentors. And I think it's true when people say like your mentor will find you. That is true to some extent, but don't just wait around to be found. Like go and
Yeah,
find it.
yeah. I mean, you can approach people too if you really want, but
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. Is there any advice that you learned from a mentor that to this day still stuck with you?
Um, yeah, I think I had a gym teacher in middle school and high school. Then he was my coach, and then he passed away, sadly.
Rest in
So
peace.
yeah, he used to say that you know, you have to sign you have to get your yearbook signed by teachers, and he wrote in my yearbook like when you go on to college, like this is your journey to find yourself. And I was so confused. I'm like, what? I don't understand what this means. Like, is it a good thing or a bad thing? You're saying I'm lost now? Like, be more specific. And he was like, he just smiled and he was like, he's like, you have immigrated from India. You came here for a purpose, right? So he said, this is your journey to like find yourself and like invest in yourself, like love yourself and allow yourself to be open in everything. Like you do not always need to have a plan because he knew me and he knew that I always have to do certain things on a certain day, time, everything. And he's like, you're too like self-constricted. You're too like you're limiting yourself. He's like, you go in with zero expectations and you see what where it takes you. And I think that has still stuck with me. And then I always, whenever I'm stuck at something, I always like look at the bigger picture and I'm like, it's not that serious. Like I need to calm down.
So are you still a planner now, or you kind of let
I
go?
still am a planner, but even if I don't check off all the boxes, I don't beat myself up or I don't say that, oh, like you're such a failure because you didn't do one thing on your to-do list. So I
Yeah.
just let it go. I'm like, tomorrow is a new day and we try again.
Yeah, 100%. I'm always I'm like that too. I'm a planner, and I'm like shoot first, ask question later kind of person. Like it depends on what I'm doing. If it's like I'm going on a trip, my boy, I will plan everything. But
Yes.
also, like you said, it's planned, but it's not written in stone. Like, let's
Yeah.
say Tuesday we will hike. No, it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be that. But at least it gives you a guide to what to do in case instead of like saying, "What are we gonna do today?" Like, no, dude,
Yeah.
we gotta plan it out.
Exactly.
You
Exactly.
know?
Yeah.
Are you mentoring someone now?
So when I graduated from high school, I was in a program that was like you get paired with an undergrad or a high school senior, and then you mentor them throughout their college. And then I have a few students there, and I also used to go mentor minority girls in Chicago who cannot afford like tuition, who cannot afford to be in extra classes, and who like they're low income. They can barely go to college, because they don't have the resources. It's not that they're dumb. So I'm in that program, and I was there for a year, so I'm finishing that up. So I really liked it. And the few people that I mentor here and there, it's been good, but I was so scared because I know like what impact mentors have had on me, and I was so scared to mess it up because I'm like, you look up to me, you want to be like me. I don't like that. It's like I always say, like, go be your own person. You do not have to copy what I do or what I did to be where I am. Like, you can be where you want to be and make that your mark, like this is where I'm supposed to be and this is where I will be, instead of comparing.
Yeah. I mean, there's a difference between comparing and getting inspiration. Like you said earlier, you took like little pieces, positive pieces from
Yeah.
all the mentors, right? They're probably doing the same thing. Like, oh, she's very, organized or whatever. She wants to take that. And also, like you said, they're young. They're lost.
There, exactly.
They don't know what to do. You know. Anyways, you went to University of Chicago,
Yep, I did.
and what are you, a neuroscientist?
I did graduate with neuroscience.
Holy
Yes.
garbage! You were like, what is like this? You study of the brain, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like how does can you explain to me like what a neuroscientist is? Like in dumb it down because I'm not that smart.
Yeah, so I was initially a bio major. I started with a bio major freshman year, and then I changed it in sophomore year because I noticed that like being a bio major is cool if you like, I mean, if you want that traditional pre-health route to go to dental, pharmacy, medical school, it's a good place because it overlaps a lot. But I think there were a lot of textbook science. That's what bio major felt like to me. Like, oh, I learned this in high school, and it's just like textbook. It's just like the cells, the organisms, and that sort of biology that I didn't really like. So I wanted to change my major anyways. And I talked to a few people, and I had a TA that broke it down for me. So, and we were witnessing COVID pandemic at this time too. So I felt like a lot of people are starting to understand about mental health, and then depression is a real thing. And I know in the Indian community, or especially in my household, my parents were very like delusional about it. They're like, being depressed is not a thing, it's your mindset. They were like, mental health is nothing, and that sort of, so I felt like I wanted to explore the topic a little bit more. And there were a few times where I wouldn't say I was depressed, but I was definitely getting like those anxiety attacks, those panic attacks that like my parents would be at work and I was home, and I'm just, unable to piece my life together, and I just broke down. So I had those, but there was nobody that I could directly talk to until I got to UIC. And I saw a lot of people talking about neuroscience, so I went to this club, and I saw that neuroscience has a lot of practical elements to it. So there is philosophy attached to it, like how it really began, how they explored everything, the principles and everything. There's psychology, of course. Neuroscience and psychology go hand in hand. There is cognitive and behavioral classes that you take, so you really get to see the different illnesses, like how it works in your brain, how you form networks, how like the whole
That's
neuroscience.
awesome.
Yeah, and you still get to learn about genetics, bio, and everything. So I felt like it was the best of the whole science world together.
I want to touch back. You mentioned something you during the pandemic you were going through some darkness there, and you said you couldn't stitch up your life. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so it was we moved out and I we moved out into like now my old house, but it our area never had apartments. So it only had like houses that you can rent. So we rented a house that was fairly big for three people, and my parents would we had one car, and that time my mom had somewhat of a stable job, but my dad still didn't. And my dad was an electrical engineer back in India, but here he had to study, he had to do everything. So he was like he went, he even had the admission form filled out, but then they told him about the tuition and about the way that he would have to live in the city. And he's like, well, my daughter is in high school, like she has to study and I have to like make a living, through my income. So I cannot go out and study, and there was also no guarantee that even after studying he would get a job because he would need like that 5 to 7 years of American experience, which he didn't have. So then my mom used to work in finance, but she was now a housewife in India. So she had to start working. And never in her wildest dream that she thought that she would work as an assembly line worker at a manufacturing company. And my dad was working at Walmart. So it was very like difficult. They didn't want to work where they're working, and it's like we didn't get to celebrate any of our festivals. We would just be in like that closed, home with nobody around us to talk to. We didn't have neighbors. Like both our neighbors, one was like they used to be empty. There used to be no one living there. So we barely had neighbors, and we had one car. So my mom used to start work at 3 in the morning. So she would have to be up at 2. And my dad would drive her, and my dad would start work at 4 or 5 or 6, but he would sit those 3 hours because he didn't want to come back home. It was too far. So he would drive my mom and then sit out those 3 hours, and they would come home at 5, 6. So I was responsible of locking the door, going to school, catching the bus, and making my own lunch, and doing all those things. And I didn't think, like, nobody told me that you were gonna have to be like you're this alone in like a foreign country. I mean, I had family and everyone, but they were like far away. So because of that, and I was going through like I was in high school, I was still in ESL. So they took me out in sophomore year. So I was just like, I want to become like what I want to do something. I want to have a good degree. I want to work. And it's like it doesn't even look like a possibility right now. So and then the pandemic hit. So it's like we're all locked down. So it's just like I didn't have a phone, so I didn't have a way of contacting like my family and friends in India. So it was
Wait,
just
what do you mean you don't have a phone? You don't have a cell phone?
I didn't have a cell phone at the time. Like I was sharing my mom's phone. Um, yeah, I crazy. It's something about Asian parents are not giving phone to like 16 or something.
I got you.
So I didn't have a phone. So I was like talking, I would call them from the school phone and I would be like, hey, my practice, I used to play tennis, so my practice is over. Like, can you come pick me up? And they would be like, no, sorry, we're at work. We can't. So then I would walk like 15 minutes to the nearest library and I would sit there till the late bus comes in. So it was like there was a lot going on, and I had like nobody that I could go talk to because it's like it just felt like they wouldn't relate to this.
What
It's
happened to the advisors or mentors?
I went to high school, none. So it's like, yeah, by the time then I felt like I was too scared to reach out because I just felt like this is not a problem. Like everyone goes through this and it's the struggle. Like you have to go through this. It's like a canon event. So then after a point, my advisor or my I had a teacher from a club, and she saw me like walking to in snow. She saw me like walking to the library, walking back to catch the late bus, and she was like, I can give you a ride. And I was like, no, that's okay, like you don't have to bother. And she was like, no, I'm giving you a ride. Like you need a ride home. And then she would drive me, and then there was a mentoring or tutoring work opportunity that she found for me. So then she was like, since you're waiting for the late bus, you can work those 3 hours. She's like, yeah, you wouldn't get time to do your homework, but you can always catch up. And she's like, she's like, start working, like start tutoring kids. And I actually liked it. Like I liked doing like homework problems with them and grading and helping the teacher out. So that way I got help later on. But there were a few months where I like didn't have anyone to like rely on or like talk to.
You must felt so alone that time, and you were home alone. Teachers not helping. How about friends?
So I made friends like later on, but again, it's high school, so you change classes. Like it's the American, that's another part that I don't like about the educational system here, that it's hard to make friends if you are not in the same like after school activities, because then how are you going to see your friend every day? It's like you have classes, you change classes, and then they all go to different classes. So you never have the same person throughout the entire day. Versus in India, you're in the same classroom no matter what. So you're with the same person like pretty much the entire year. So I guess like I made friends through tennis, but it was a very like I was playing doubles, so it was my partner, and it was very like, well, we're friends, but we're not like deep bestest of friends. So it's like it was hard, and it's like all these, like, no offense, all these like predominantly settled white family kids that drop their kids off, that don't take the bus. So it's like it felt so like we're so different. And that's when the whole like, the mirror exposure effect from psychology comes in, when you people tend to like or go after things that are familiar to them or that are similar to them. So that's what I was going through. And I'm like, they're so different. Like, why would they like me? And it's like I was sitting alone in lunch, I was doing my homework. And so I never had like that talking moment with my friends. But yeah, then sophomore year, I changed classes. I moved up to honors classes, AP classes. And that's where I found a lot of my friends, because they had the same mindset of like, I don't know it doesn't matter to me what color are you or what your family background is. We're here in the same class. We're here to learn, to grow, and to exceed in this class. So that's how I met my high school friends, and I'm still in touch with them, and I'm so grateful that I found them. And I had a whole diverse, like it was the most diverse group from our school. That was my friends. It was me, it was a Middle Eastern, I had a Vietnamese friend, I had a Latino friend. So it was all of us that like found home in each other, that like we went through the same thing, I went through the same thing. We're here to study and like do good in school.
Those are quality friends, like
Yeah.
high level quality friends. Were you deliberately looking for them, or it just so happens?
No, I had a yeah, I had a big group of friends in India, and my parents have a big group of friends here. So I was always like, damn, like I don't have that big of a friend group here. So, but I like my parents used to always say like, don't let that like stop you from, going to your limits, trying your best at school. Like you'll find friends. And even I have a mentor right now, and she tells me the same thing. She's like, I was in your position at one point, and you will find your people when it's the time. So trust the process and like continue to do what you are doing. Don't change yourself. So that's what I did. I was too focused on studying and like extracurriculars and playing that I met my friends, and we sort of relate on the same values and beliefs, that we stuck with each other. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I always need to see you in lunch, I always need to text you or call you. No, it's like we meet when we can, and we appreciate it, and then we pick up where we left off.
Yeah, codependency.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I like that because growing up in the Philippines, I had thousands of friends. Well,
Yeah.
there's different levels, you know?
Yeah.
And then, like you said, you moved to the West, and there is no one.
Yeah.
It's like you feel so alone. I mean, literally alone, physically and mentally,
Yeah.
right? I think it's one of the hardest for most immigrants is losing friends. And even I had conversations from immigrants that were been living here in Canada or US for like a few years and a decade, and they still haven't found a friend.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. But also sometimes though, like you said earlier, like they're not open-minded.
Yeah.
They're looking for the things that was from home. You can't. You have to. It's a different thing here, you know?
Right. Exactly. And it's also about like, but again, like I feel like finding yourself, like find like what your soul needs. And this is cliche, but you don't like, oh, just because you wear the same clothes, you wear the same brands. No, like find someone that will support you through thick and thin. And if you don't, that's okay. I feel like be your own best friend. I was my own best friend for like a good amount of time when I moved here.
100%. Did you went through some bullying?
I would say not in terms of appearance because I'm going to be honest, I did not care. Like you can make fun of me, like we both know like I'm not the best looking person, like it's okay. But I think and it's like my high school there wasn't a lot of bullying happening. It's like people just didn't give a like shit. They just didn't care. And I remember the only like it's not bullying, but so my parents would go to work and whatever was left from dinner, I would just take that for lunch. And again, I need my eating times. I need to eat like 3 times a day. So I cannot starve myself just because someone else doesn't like what I'm eating, you know? So I would take whatever was left over. And sometimes, yeah, when you open up your lunchbox, it smells. It smells like onion, garlic, hot sauce, whatever
Correct.
call it. And it did. And I remember like people moved away in from my lunch table because they just couldn't handle the smell. And I'm like, this is crazy, but I'm gonna eat. Like, and I like it got so like it's funny how like a teacher came up to me from lunch like who was supervising and he was like, hey, like I can smell that from like very far away. Like, what is that? And I'm like, I'm happy to explain what the food item is, but this is not gonna stop me from eating. Like I'm eating my lunch.
That's bad.
And he was like, you should like maybe like open it up in like a bathroom or in the hallway and then come in.
Bathroom. It's
Yeah.
food. What are you talking about?
Exactly. I was like, so I just don't eat. And yeah, the first day I didn't eat. I like closed it up and I put it in my bag. I'm like, we're gonna just eat on fruits today. But then the next day I went and I told my mom, and she was like, well, it's again, like it's up to you. You have to prove them that, or you have to let them know that this is the food we eat at home and there's no shame about it. And you will eat the food. And it's like you have to eat your lunch. And my parents were like, go speak up for yourself. Like, we're not going to come to school and ask them to let you eat in lunch. It's on you. And so I went and I told them, I'm like, this is the food item, this is how we make it, and like this is what it's called in English. But it's I like food. I eat this type of food and I'm gonna eat this type of food. Like, I'm sorry if there's a problem, but I don't make a mess. Like, I don't know what the problem is. And then he didn't say anything. I'm like, what are you gonna stop me from eating? Because too late, I'm eating. And then I like people still never like nobody like sat with me in lunch. I was having lunch alone. So that might be a reason why I used to skip lunch because I used to just eat on my way and I had to go like do homework or do some assignment. But like I still even like till 12th grade, I used to take Indian food to school. Like, hey, you're
That's
not
funny. That's crazy. It's funny you mentioned something like that, that the teacher approached you. It happened here in Montreal. It was actually a Filipino kid. And he opened his food, Filipino food, there's a certain smell, And one of the teachers made a comment, like, you stinks, whatever, And the kid went to the mom, and the mom went to the school, and the school's like, oh, there's nothing wrong with it. And that mom went to the news outlet. Big
Ooh.
news. It was big news. They sued the school, and they won.
Oh,
You should sue your school.
amazing. Kudos to them for taking that step, honestly.
Yeah, but I mean, that's too much. Like, I'll just eat, But I love your resilience of like, I don't care, dude. I gotta eat, man. You're not gonna
Literally.
feed me.
Literally, like you don't pay for my lunch. Like, and I remember like there was the workers there who serve lunch. She came up to me and she gave me a plate of like pizza slice and fruit, whatever it's served at school. And I'm like, I don't need this. Like I have my lunch. And she was like, we've noticed you sit alone because of your food. Like people don't want to come sit with you. Like here, like this is on us. Like I'm like, no, if I wanted free lunch, like I would have applied for that, but I don't. I'm like, I don't like this. I was so tempted to say, like, I do not want that oily piece of pizza. Like, I'm good. But like that's another thing is like be kind again. Like I don't like being mean, and when someone is mean to me, I don't like it. So I also have trouble with like confrontation and just, so I
Single
typically,
child, you know?
yeah, I typically don't fight. I'm just like, well, I let it go. So I'm like, no, I appreciate it. Like, thank you so much. But if I need it, like, I will definitely ask you for
You
it.
should have taken it and give it to someone else.
That's what my mom said. She's like, help. But it's like everyone has enough money in high school to go
But
to.
still, it's still food, you know? Going back to what you said when with mom saying like, "Oh, this is your food. They're not gonna do anything. You gotta eat your food, right?"
Yeah.
Did you feel somehow that you felt like there was no support? They're not supporting you.
I felt like in terms of I feel like I needed that push because I the first day I closed my lunchbox and I didn't eat, and I sort of gave them what they wanted from me. And they wanted me to like not bring Indian food. They wanted me to bring PBJs and to bring a salad to school. And it's like, so I did what they wanted me to do. And they were sort of overpowering, over me. So my parents were like, you do not let anyone do that to you. Like, if you want to make a point, you make a point. But you do it very nicely, very kindly. You don't be rude to them. So my mom was like, maybe you explain, maybe they don't know what the food is about. Maybe they haven't explored spices like how we did. So like educate them. Like maybe and that was true. Like they've only sort of like seen people come with PBJs. So when I told them about the whole process and everything, how it's so popular in India, and he was actually so interested then. He was like, "Oh, that's amazing. Like I just didn't know." And I just like from the expressions of the students, like I felt like I had to come and intervene. And I'm like, "Yeah, it's okay." Like, but I'm gonna eat my food. So I felt like if my parents didn't like give me that push, I would have stopped eating and I would have just taken like the same lunchbox home without eating.
100%. That's your experience in high school. How about your experience during college? You mentioned earlier offline that you moved away from home. Now you're living alone. You're living by yourself. What did you learn from that experience?
So I think initially it was very difficult because, but okay, I want to preface this by saying I was so ready to get out. I was like, I feel like I need to do things my way and like do things more efficiently because you guys don't do it right. And my parents were like, okay, like go. And they were quite hesitant to like send me because it was during the pandemic too. So they were not sure of who I was going to come in contact with. And so I remember for the first couple weeks, my mom would call me like every hour. Like, what are you doing?
Every hour.
Every hour. Like, did you sleep? Did you eat? Like, what are you doing? And I'm like, God damn. Like, if you're gonna be like this, like, I'm never gonna find friends or go out. And then I felt like initially I had so much time myself that I didn't appreciate it back when, like I said, when I was having the anxiety attacks. I just hated being home alone. But now, like fast forward to college, like I really enjoyed being home alone. And I really started to fantasize life more. And it sounds funny, it sounds like very internet term, but it's like it's what I needed. Like I would get off class, I would walk around campus, I would have my lunch outside, and I would go home whenever I want to an empty place, and I would stay there, I would do my homework and sleep. Like no changes in routine, but I guess like I sort of like I was pitying myself. Like why are you so lonely? You do not have to be this lonely. Versus cut to like college where then I was like, I'm finally getting me time. I started swimming. I was always a swimmer, but I joined the gym. I would play badminton and tennis here and there. I swam a lot. I found friends. I would make the time to go out with them, make plans and show up to those extra classes and whatnot. And sometimes I would just be by myself, like heat up some ramen and just watch a movie and call it a night. But it was so like peaceful, and so like I wish I would have done this sooner.
Yeah, but you would have not appreciated.
Yeah.
You have to go through the darkness before you appreciate the light. You
Yeah.
know. Listen, Twisha, I think we're there. It's been such a pleasure having a conversation with you. Before we close out, do you have any last message or anything you'd like to say?
I think everyone comes with a unique journey, so you do not like say that your journey was like okay, or like like you look up to someone and you're like, man, wish I had that glow up, wish I had that switch over and I got that many opportunities. Like you're just not appreciating your journey enough. So I would say like find yourself and appreciate the journey as much as you can, because you're gonna look back and you're gonna feel like so proud of yourself and so grateful that you were able to overcome those obstacles.
Beautiful. By the way, before we really let
Talked a
go,
lot. I'm sorry, I talked a lot.
I, that's why you're here. You have to talk. But what I was gonna say, like I kind of intentionally not talk about your podcast because you guys can listen to the story about the podcast in Mudra's episode, which is awesome. I just really want to focus on your story. You know what I mean? But anyways, why don't you say the Instagram and the podcast name and all that stuff before we close out?
Yeah, so our Instagram is at From Suitcase to Success, and my Instagram is at Twisha Age.
I love it. I love it. Again,
Yeah.
Twisha, thank you for coming on the podcast. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And sometimes I felt like I rambled a lot, but I think I'm overall able to see my journey and appreciate my journey more because of this podcast. And you asked so many great questions, and
Oh,
that's
thank
what
you.
I like listening to your podcast too. Like the questions are different and great, and they're very natural too.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Again, Twisha, have a good evening.
Yeah, thank you. You too.
Bye. Again, Twisha, thank you for coming on the podcast. I really do appreciate it. Thank you, listeners, for listening. This is Aaron Deliosa for An Immigrant's Life. I'll see you guys later.